My name is Raul Roncal. I'm one of the coordinators of the Central Sector. I'm also part of the teaching team of the community. I would like to introduce a series of presentations that we will be listening to as a community in the next few months. It's a series of teachings reminding us of the social teachings of the Catholic Church. What's the aim of this series of teachings? Mainly to go back and encourage us to understand the teachings of the Catholic Church regarding our social responsibility. These teachings have always existed, and we have several of them through the decades. And it's always speaking about what we need to do for the people around us and the social context that we find ourselves in. And we want to understand those teachings. But more importantly, we want to understand them because we want to be encouraged to continue our mission of evangelization, of bringing people closer to Christ, because it's part of social transformation. And also to be encouraged that our ongoing social action is something that we need to continue doing. And it's something good. And it's connected to the teachings of the Catholic Church. At the same time, in hearing these teachings again, we want to pause and say, can we do more? Can we do more? What will be the basic content of these presentations? Well, first and foremost, we will begin a presentation which will actually be given today on the Philippine context. Who are we? And what's our context here in the Philippines? This will be followed by a presentation on the basic principles of the social doctrines of the Church, which aims to encourage us to continue doing what we're doing. At the same time, challenge us. Can we do more? Understanding the principles of the teachings of the Catholic Church in the call to social transformation would help us. Principles like human dignity, that each human being is important because our life comes from God. Our interconnection, the principle of solidarity, calls Christians not to close our eyes to the needs of the people around us. That's a principle that we could understand so that it will help us look at the kind of life we're living. And then we would end with a reflection on the parable of the Good Samaritan and the call to live a life of social transformation. This life of social transformation that begins with social responsibility is what Pope Francis is telling us to consider. He says that the parable of the Good Samaritan speaks to all Christians today. The parable, he says, I'm quoting him in his recent encyclical, the parable eloquently presents the basic decision we need to make in order to rebuild our wounded world. In the face of so much pain and suffering, our only recourse is to imitate the Good Samaritan. Christians today must imitate the Good Samaritan. That's the last presentation that we will listen to in this series. Let me now give the first presentation. The Philippine context, where we are and where should we go. We are predominantly Christian. Our population is around 90% Christian, predominantly Catholic. And our neighbors know that. And that's why we are recognized as a Christian nation. John Paul II, when he came to us in 1981, said this, you will hear other nations, especially your neighbors in Asia, calling you, come help us. John Paul II was calling us and reminding us about the call to mission, to spread the gospel. And he said, all other nations will invite us to help them. That was in 1981. But what is our context? Our context is this. We are celebrating 500 years of Christianity. And yet, if you look at our life together as a nation, we cannot close our eyes to the reality that there is still corruption in our government, corruption in our life together as a people. And our neighbors in Asia know that. That's why there's also social inequality. Poverty still dominates our life. And so we have to accept that we are Christians. We are a Christian nation still struggling with the social realities. We have to accept that. But we cannot accept it and do nothing. Because Pope Francis, when he came back here to speak to us in 2015, he said this to us. He said, at all levels of society, there is a need to reject all forms of corruption which diverts resources from the poor and to make a concerted effort to ensure the inclusion of every man and woman and child in the life of the community. We should reject corruption because corruption prevents us from giving our resources to those who are in need. The first group that is affected when there is corruption are those on the fringes of society. That's why in his homily celebrating the 500 years of Christianity here in the Philippines, again, the Pope reminds us of this call. The Christian proclamation that you have received needs constantly to be brought to others. The gospel message of God's closeness cries out to be expressed in love for our brothers and sisters. God desires that no one perish. For this reason, he asks for the church to care for those who are hurting and those who are on the fringes of society. If we look at this invitation to look at those in the fringes of our life, what is the Pope telling us to do? He's telling us, do not close your eyes to those who are in need. You need to constantly proclaim the good news to them. We need to constantly recognize our situation here in our country. In Matthew 25, Jesus speaks to his disciples. And you know this is the judgment day. And he's talking about the need to provide for those who are in need. The passage goes, then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. The basic Christian message is also very clear. Jesus wants us to recognize in those who are hungry, thirsty, naked, in prison, sick, his presence. And therefore, we cannot close our eyes to them if you are a disciple, if you're a follower of Christ. And that is the same call that Pope Francis is giving Filipinos. Do not close your eyes to the needs of those who are in need in your country. That is our context. That is our situation. And if we admit that, we should be moved to do something for those who are in need. That's why the community pantry has become very popular in our country in this recent months. Patricia Non was asked, so why are you doing this? She said, sawang-sawa na akong magreklamo, gusto ko na may gawin. Even if it's not coming from a purely religious point of view, she was just narrating her experience of needing to do something with those who are in need around her. And it has inspired us to do something. It seems that is the same reminder Pope Francis is giving us. Do not close your eyes to those who are in the fringes. So what is the basic insight of our context here in our country? Where should we go? Where are we? Well, the basic insight is this. We cannot close our eyes to the situation of our country, our social context. We need to accept it, at the same time accept the fact that we are called as Christians to do something about it. Let me conclude this first presentation on the social teachings of the church that paints the picture of our Philippine context by saying this. Many of the teachings of the social teachings of the Catholic Church that calls for social transformation is not a set of things to do mainly, but it gives a vision that is calling us to make a personal choice. You cannot get a list of things to do only and be required to do it. No. You need to hear this call, and when you hear this call, you need to make a personal choice. And a personal choice for social responsibility is the one that would lead to corporate action. That is part and parcel of what happens to Christians who respond to this call. You know the situation in our country, in the Philippines, and I think it's very clear that we cannot close our eyes to it. We need to do something, and we need to make a personal choice to do it. I hope that this first presentation will help us begin the process of thinking about the demands of the social doctrines of the Catholic Church, especially for us Filipinos.
Limang-daang taon ng Kristyanismo. 500 taon. Ang ating pananampalataya ay nadarama sa iba't ibang parte ng ating kultura, sa ating mga tradisyon, sa ating mga pagdiriwang, mga debosyon at panata, at sa ating mga tahanan. Maari nating sabihin, buhay ang Kristyanismo sa ating bayan. Ito ang ating sandalan sa lahat ng hagupit ng buhay. May awa ang Diyos. Yan ang ating laging sambit. May awa ang Diyos. Yan ang taus-puso nating paniniwala. Ngunit, bakit tayo ganito? Bakit natin hinahayaang mangyari ang lahat ng ito? Bilang Kristiyano, wala nga ba tayong pananagutan sa lipunan?
Siguro madalas yun ang narinig na bilang mga Kristiyano, mga laiko, ay kailangan tayong sumangkot sa pangyayari sa lipunan. Kasi dumating si Jesus upang iligtas hindi lang ang kaluluwa, hindi lang ang tao, ngunit iligtas ang buong mundo. So kasama po ang lipunan natin. Pero paano ba tayo makikisangkot sa lipunan? Kaya ang simbahan, mayroon po siyang gabay na ibinibigay sa atin. Ang tawag po dito ay Catholic Social Teachings. So the Church provides a vision towards an integral human and societal development of the world. At itong vision na ito, yung pananaw, yung pangarap na ito ay nakalagay sa Catholic Social Teaching natin. Paano ba kikilos ang mga Kristiyano sa lipunan? Kaya ang CST po is a discernible body of official social teachings. Official Catholic social teaching sa lipunan on world order. So mga body of teachings yan, no, na tungkol po sa pananagutan natin sa lipunan. At ang lipunan kasama din po dyan ang world order, ang economic, cultural, even environmental and political aspects of life.
Lahat ng taong nilikha ay may kakayahan. Gamitin natin ng wasto ang bigay na karunungan. Walang dapat ipangamba, di ka pababayaan, pagkat ang Diyos Ama ang iyong gabay. Gumising na, tayo'y magkaisa, sabay-sabay sa paghakbang patungo sa kinabukasan. Magsikap, ating mararating, bayani ka ng iyong inambayan. Gumising na, tayo'y magkaisa, sabay-sabay sa paghakbang patungo sa kinabukasan. Magsikap, ating mararating, bayani ka ng iyong inambayan.